machining and maintenance level, weapon storage, staff rest area, entertainment zone, research lab, supply warehouse. Qin Jun spent several hours getting a rough tour of the interior of the base. Even though he was physically fit, he was exhausted. It can be said that this base has many floors and a large area, essentially equipped with all the necessary facilities. The stockpile of supplies is exceptionally abundant, making it a self-sufficient base capable of surviving, well, even if besieged for years. Especially noteworthy are the production lines that can process and manufacture various mechanical combat units. In critical situations with a shortage of personnel, they can effectively supplement the defense system with enough troops. The solid walls of the base, 3 layers thick, serve as the perfect first line of defense. It is not an easy task to breach them and enter the interior of the base. What puzzled Qin Jun was that, although the base's defense forces were very well equipped and the supply reserves were sufficient, he had not found any clues about the internal members of the base. Apart from the decayed equipment and the charred supplies, there wasn't even a small fragment of a bone to be found. It was as if no one had ever been stationed at this base, as if everyone had given up on it. This was very inconsistent with what he had observed outside. The battle situation was so brutal. Why would the people here abandon such a perfect base and risk facing the threat of death outside? Qin Jun, unwilling to give up, left the core area and went up to the ordinary floors in search of answers. However, what puzzled him was that there were also no remains of a corpse in the rooms on the ordinary floors. Everyone had mysteriously vanished. With a sense of confusion, Qin Jun arrived at the lowest level of the base. This was the Energy Control Center, an underground command post of the entire base, a place where he had still not fully cracked the defense system and gained entry. Perhaps here, he could find the answers he needed. It's really a troublesome place. Let's see how you resist my entry. Qin Jun knelt in front of the main entrance of the base, his hands continuously typing on a keyboard he had disassembled from another location. The system module that came with his combat suit had already been removed and connected to the network here. As the most important place in the base, the defense system here is undoubtedly the most complex and sophisticated that Qin Jun has encountered so far. Even with advanced auxiliary systems, he still couldn't break through the base's defense. Forced to take action, Qin Jun had no choice but to act as a hacker and launch an attack on the core defense system of the base alongside the auxiliary system. Fortunately, before becoming an officer, Qin Jun had always served as a fleet computer technician, which gave him his own methods and abilities for cracking systems. Got it. Qin Jun, drenched in sweat, revealed a joyful smile as he shouted and forcefully pressed the confirm key on the computer keyboard. The defense capabilities and tight security of this core system were completely beyond his understanding. The terrifyingly complex firewall was so intricate that even with his advanced technological knowledge, he found it difficult to crack. Qin Jun was certain that in earlier times, even if someone were lucky enough to access this place, without extensive knowledge and operational skills in high technology, they would be utterly helpless against such a heavily fortified system, left only to sigh in despair at the door. The ARC system has been activated normally, confirming user permissions. Welcome, esteemed commander. As the button was pressed, a clear voice suddenly emanated from the speakers on the metal door. This was the first time Qin Jun had heard a human voice since entering the base. Although it was just a synthetic voice, it sounded so pleasant and melodious to him. The core system of the base is exceptionally complex and intricate. Many areas are hidden with deadly traps, and any mistake will be detected by the sensitive system, automatically triggering the base's destruction mechanism. Fortunately, the technological energy that Qin Jun possesses cannot be deceived by systems from hundreds of years ago. After much effort, he finally obtained the ultimate authority over the entire core program. Now he is the system's default highest commander and has completely mastered the whole base. Commander? The voice of the computer made Qin Jun involuntarily think of the man who led the fleet, constantly advancing and achieving victory. Only General Fan Yun was the only supreme commander and leader that Qin Jun recognized. Is this the ARC? Please open the main door. I want to enter the command center. Qin Jun came to his senses and issued commands to the system controlling the core area. He was very eager to see what secrets were hidden within this heavily fortified control center. The choking smoke and dust swirled up with a thunderous sound in the opening gate, forcing Qin Jun to put on his helmet to shield himself from this terrifying dust storm. As the rising smoke and dust gradually settled, the internal environment of the core area finally appeared before him. As soon as he stepped inside, what caught his eye was several towering combat machines brandishing heavy firearms, glaring menacingly at the entrance. The faint yet still glowing red eyes indicated to him that these combat robots had not lost their energy like their counterparts outside. They were still capable of fighting. If he hadn't safely intercepted the highest authority and opened the door through normal means, he probably would have been attacked the moment he revealed himself. As he walked past the ever-vigilant mechanical guards at the gate, a massive control center appeared before him. At the forefront was a gigantic screen made up of hundreds of display panels. Although most of them had failed, it was still possible to discern from the few that were functioning normally that this place monitored every corner of the base, including the exterior of the mine. In the very center of the control center stands a prominent circular platform that is taller than any other place. A seemingly comfortable chair faces the hall, with its back to the direction from which Qin Jun entered. This should be the position of the base commander, allowing a view over the entire control center, enabling them to observe everything in detail. Surrounding the small platform are various control operation consoles arranged neatly in rows, countless computers and instruments, making the entire control center look very much like the secondary command cabin where Qin Jun had spent time in the past, giving him a strange sense of familiarity and unfamiliarity. All along the way, he still hadn't discovered any human remains, only damaged and shut down instruments, just instruments. The roads were covered in thick layers of dust between the various control platforms, indicating that this place had been abandoned for a long time, with no visitors since. Perhaps ever since the base was closed, Qin Jun was the first person to come here. Entering the commander's control platform, Qin Jun encountered a very familiar device. This high-altitude platform, just like the one in the fleet command cabin, was adjustable in height, and even the control buttons nearby were quite similar to what he had seen before. Qin Jun confidently pressed one of the buttons, and, as he had imagined, the high command platform slowly descended. Due to the angle at which he was standing, he was gradually able to see some of the contents on the platform. As he descended further, everything on the platform slowly came into view. When he saw what was on the command seat, he couldn't help but breathe rapidly, his expression tinged with excitement. It was a persona, it should be said a skeleton. This was the first time he had encountered human skeletal remains since entering the base. This skeleton is tall and robust. Even though only a pile of white bones remains, one can still imagine that this person must have been a sturdy and tall individual in their prime. The black military uniform draped over the skeleton resembles the fleet uniforms of later generations. Qin Jun is neither an intelligence officer nor a historian who enjoys researching the past. So although the uniform looks familiar, he still cannot recall which type of military would wear such attire. After all, the time gap between the two sides is too long, and there is no longer any available information or reference. What caught his attention was the still, gleaming general insignia on the uniform, a shine that even the passage of time could not erase. Despite the years that had passed, he could still clearly discern the identity displayed by the other party, especially the 5-point star on the military cap placed on the table, which made Qin Jun realize that the owner of the skeleton belonged to the same ethnicity as him, a member of the Chinese nation, a descendant of Yin and Huang. Salute. Qin Jun saluted the remains with a solemn expression. Even though the person did not belong to his unit, he felt it was important to show respect to this predecessor who had remained on duty even until death. The second fleet of the Chinese Guardian warship, General Liu Jianzhu, Qin Jun brushed off the dust on the control panel and picked up a small nameplate to read. As the words echoed, the look of astonishment on his face gradually deepened. Qin Jun is not particularly skilled in history, but he has a basic understanding of it. The name Chinese Guardian ship is quite a notable one in later generations, and it can be said that every survivor is familiar with it and holds it in reverence. It is the first civilian organization to resist after Earth was invaded by the Drutan aliens. It was the first to use its own strength to provide aid and combat alien forces. During the brutal 18 years of war, it relied on its tenacity and determination to reorganize a nation that had lost its leader. Countless battle heroes emerged from its ranks, and numerous advanced weapons capable of posing a threat to enemy forces were developed by the scientists it gathered, contributing to the fight against the invaders. They are the strong backbone of the newly formed Chinese ruling team and the precursor to the interstellar battle fleet. Countless generals, scientists, and politicians have emerged from its ranks, including the military and political leaders, such as Marshal Liu Fengyuan, who led the Chinese interstellar fleet on expeditions, Chief of Staff Yang Jun, and General Liu Xiaotian, the commander of the second main combat fleet, all of whom came from there. Movies featuring frigates as their main theme have always been a favorite among fleet personnel and are never tiresome to watch. Even now, The fleet's military uniforms have been modified based on the combat uniform style of the frigates from back in the day. No wonder this military uniform looks so familiar. It turns out to be the official equipment of a frigate. Qin Jun's expression became more solemn and grave as he looked at the remains, his eyes filled with a sense of respect. General Liu Jianzhu, known as one of the most famous technological leaders in the history of frigates, renowned for his robust physique and extensive research on various weapons and equipment, has always been an object of admiration and respect for Qin Jun. To his surprise, he was able to see the true figure of this great predecessor with his own eyes here. Is this base the legendary mysterious warship base? Shouldn't it be located on Earth? Where exactly is this place? The excitement in Qin Jun's heart couldn't conceal his deeper feelings of confusion at this moment. Everything he saw was truly unbelievable. He was eager to understand everything and, with slightly trembling fingers, pointed at the button on the command console. Attention, attention. The base control program has been activated, and energy supply is beginning to return to normal. Control personnel, please confirm whether all functions are fully activated. It must be reminded to the operators that activating all projects carries a 70 probability of being detected by enemy reconnaissance equipment. So please choose carefully. If you wish to activate only certain functions, please press the blue button. To activate all functions, please press the red button. As the largest screen on the wall flickered with the activation interface, a slightly mechanical synthetic voice echoed once more. Qin Jun thought for a moment and pressed the blue button. He didn't want to activate all the functions of the base immediately. He was genuinely concerned that doing so would attract the attention of the Druden military. After all, the equipment here was too outdated and antiquated, even if it was buried hundreds of meters underground. With complex metal or veins as a barrier, it would still be difficult to completely conceal the noise generated by a sudden surge of energy. For safety reasons, he chose to activate only some of the functions of the base. Hello, intruder. No, I should refer to you as the new commander. I am the central control program of the base, and you can call me Ark. Welcome to humanity's last oasis, Ark Base. As the lights on various instruments began to illuminate one after another, an unexpected figure appeared on the central screen. This is a virtual image of an elderly Eastern man in his 50s or 60s, dressed in a flowing long robe, with a long beard reaching his chest and an elegant and kind appearance. At this moment, he is observing the outsider who has unilaterally activated the base program with a look of deep meaning in his eyes, showing considerable interest. It turned out to be an intelligent program, and a highly advanced one at that. Qin Jun stared at the screen in surprise, nervously reaching for the assault rifle at his chest. An intelligent program is not like an ordinary computer program. It has its own unique way of thinking and operating, and it will take aggressive measures against any outsiders that it does not recognize. If he had known that a high-level intelligent program was controlling the entire base, he wouldn't have recklessly activated the main computer. Now, Qin Jun was prepared for the possibility that the program might turn hostile, and he was ready to escape from this place. Please don't be too nervous. Although you have forcefully modified your permissions through illegal means, it doesn't mean I will take any harmful actions against you. Young man, relax. Fang Zhou keenly observed the wary expression and movements of the other party, and couldn't help but smile while stroking his beard. As the actual controller of this base, he had already noticed the intruder Qin Jun through other means long ago. If it weren't for the fact that the other party had Chinese ancestry and wasn't from some other alien race, and because he had a certain respect for the remains of the old officer, he would have quietly eliminated this intruder as soon as they entered. Hello, Mr. Arkansas. I am Qin Jun, a major officer from the secondary command room of the flagship Qin Shi Huang of the Chinese Interstellar Fleet's 3rd Exploration Squadron. Since the other party did not have any malicious intent, Qin Jun slightly relaxed his tense expression and seriously introduced his true identity again. He did not dare to conceal anything from a highly intelligent program, so he honestly revealed his identity, believing that earning the other party's trust was more appropriate. Oh, the 3rd Exploration Team. That must be the unit of that little girl, Yi Xian, right? I didn't expect to hear news about her here. It's been so many years since we last met. Is she doing well? Fang Zhou closed his eyes, pretending to think, and soon smiled as he lifted his head, clearly having completed his search of his database. Little girl. Qin Jun rolled his eyes in disbelief. The level of evolution of this intelligent program was indeed very high, and the questions it asked were full of human warmth. Could it be that advanced intelligent programs are all this personable? Just like Niwa, Those who didn't know would never guess that someone capable of expressing such caring words typical of an elder to a younger person was not a real human, but merely a virtual program. Vice Admiral Yi Xian has sacrificed himself as the first commander of the fleet during its voyage. The current commander of the Third Fleet is Vice Admiral Fan Yun. Although surprised by the other party's reaction, Qin Jin still spoke seriously and earnestly about what he knew. She sacrificed herself. Interstellar navigation is indeed fraught with danger. What a pity, she was such a wonderful girl. Fang Zhou sighed, displaying a very human expression of sadness on his face. In response, Qin Jun chose to ignore him. It was pointless to struggle with someone at a certain level, and there was no need for it. On the Qin Shi Huang ship, he had already been through the same advanced evolution on the very advanced Arc 3 in Yuhua, so he had developed some immunity to this auditory impact. In fact, he even felt a deep sense of familiarity, as if he had returned to the flagship to be with his companions. Well then, Major Qin Jun, can you talk to me about the situation outside? I have been hiding here for hundreds of years, completely isolated from the outside world. Fang Zhou did not finish his sentence, but Qin Jun had already understood. He immediately shared everything he knew. He understood that only by allowing the powerful intelligent program to grasp more relevant information could he better leverage its capabilities. He wanted to safely leave this place to search for traces of the fleet, and he needed the other party's assistance to do so. Naturally, Qin Jun felt puzzled about his environment, and during the introduction, he took the opportunity to express his concerns. Fang Zhou had no intention of hiding anything and patiently answered all questions. Time flowed quickly as the two exchanged questions and answers in front of the computer. It wasn't until Qin Jun's stomach started to rumble with hunger that he realized more than 10 hours had already passed. During this period of questioning and answering, he resolved various doubts that had been lingering in his heart. Yet he was shocked and found it hard to accept. It turned out that the planet he was currently on was indeed the origin of humanity, the abandoned homeland Earth. Despite being in a distant galaxy, he suddenly woke up to find himself on Earth. Such a bizarre occurrence would be hard for anyone to believe. However, the base and the intelligent program in front of him were undeniably real, not a dream. It took him quite a while to process this revelation. As for how Qin Jun had traversed such vast distances to appear here, even the information-rich Ark could not provide an answer, leaving only the exclamation that the mysteries of the universe are truly numerous and wondrous. In the conversation, Ark once again confirmed Qin Jun's identity as the commander, receiving official recognition. A major officer from his Third Fleet became the true master of this ancient base. With complete access, Qin Jun truly realized how vast this base was. In addition to the floors he had discovered himself, the entire base also concealed several more secret locations, all of which stored a large quantity of the most advanced, powerful, and effective weapons and equipment. Of course, these items have become outdated relics after hundreds of years, but at that time, they were all quite valuable. He also learned that the energy supply for the entire base was not powered by nuclear energy as he had initially thought, but rather by a more advanced form of bioenergy. This also explained the question of why the base had been able to operate quietly here for hundreds of years without being detected by the Drutans. What surprised him the most was that right beneath his feet, in what he had assumed was the lowest level of the base, there was actually another hidden floor. There was something there, but the Ark remained mysterious and refused to reveal it directly, insisting that he discover it for himself. With a strong sense of curiosity, Qin Jun followed the guidance of the Ark and arrived at the most mysterious floor. The hidden door opened quietly, and a chill air rushed towards him. Qin Jun, dressed in a temperature-controlling combat uniform, could still feel the penetrating cold that seeped into his lungs. Looking at the dimly lit, deep passage, he took a deep breath, filled with a mix of anxious curiosity, and stepped inside. The passage is long and filled with numerous forks without the prior guidance of an Ark. It is easy to get lost inside. Along the way, countless hidden mechanisms that have not been activated were revealed, all of which are intricately designed defensive systems with astonishing lethality. Qin Jun couldn't help but feel a deep curiosity about this exceptionally fortified place, and his desire to explore it further grew even more intense. Coffins, countless coffins. As he navigated through the perilous and complex maze, what met his eyes was an endless expanse of metallic box-like objects. In fact, it would not be accurate to call these things coffins. They merely resembled each other in appearance. Only by stepping closer to observe could one discern that these coffin-like metal boxes were actually very ancient cryogenic chambers, the predecessors of the sleep pods commonly found on interstellar warships. Qin walked in surprise towards the nearest container, peering through the transparent observation window that exuded a chilling air. Inside lay a complete human body. It was that of a middle-aged man, with several devices connected to him. Years of freezing had left his entire body with a sickly pallor. If it weren't for the display screen on the container still flickering with relevant data, no one would believe that what lay inside was a living human being, still exhibiting signs of life. This is... Can you explain it to me? Qin did not expect that the secret he uncovered would turn out to be like this, and could only express his astonishment through the intelligent program's rescue system. How many people are there in total here? Qin asked, swallowing hard as he looked at the densely packed, endless rows of freezer boxes. There are over 6,700 technical personnel, more than 3,000 service staff, and over 14,000 combat personnel, with several thousand others, totaling nearly 30,000 people frozen. I could provide you with a detailed list of the specific numbers and information. 30,000 people. Qin couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. He had originally thought that he would be all alone for a long time in the future, but he didn't expect there to be so many companions here. However, how to rescue these people from their frozen state made him furrow his brows. Once a living body is frozen, if the optimal defrosting time is missed, it becomes quite difficult to bring them back out intact. The longer the freezing period, the greater the difficulty of rescue. Only experienced and highly skilled doctors might be able to manage it. But he was just a combat personnel with only a superficial understanding of medicine, and he couldn't be of much help. Watching so many companions remain unsalvageable was truly a frustrating and helpless situation. How can I rescue them? Qin could think of no solutions and could only place his hope in the intelligence system. I originally had no way to do this, but with your arrival, there's hope. As long as I can extract your blood sample and genes, I can use the equipment in the base to cultivate various urgently needed materials. At that time, we will be able to use them to repair the injuries on the frozen individuals and rescue them. All right, no problem. When do we start? Qin eagerly hoped to join the team. After all, it was just some blood and flesh. He didn't care about these injuries. Please don't rush. This requires some time for preparation. Many devices also need to be recalibrated and repaired, so please be patient. The Ark itself was pleased to be able to rescue the original base members. It specifically addressed the excited Qin, saying, "Major Qin, please pay close attention to the list I provided you. Those names marked with special annotations should not be attempted to be unfrozen until you have complete confidence. Make sure to take note." Qin sensed the seriousness in the tone of the intelligent program and curiously searched for the list. He wanted to see who exactly was so important to the Ark that they could not be unfrozen lightly. Upon receiving the list, Qin was completely shocked as he looked at the names that were specifically marked. Gai Zhenzi, Gai Zhenhao, Ziang Zianfeng, Liu Mei, Gang Ming, Gu Xinghun. One dazzling name after another nearly made Qin's heart leap out of his chest. All of these individuals are renowned figures in later generations, objects of admiration for countless people, especially the first few, who include the founders of escort ships, formidable generals with impressive military achievements, and legendary heroes from folklore. If any one of them were to appear in front of the human survivors, it would cause a seismic shock akin to a landslide or tsunami. No wonder the intelligent program repeatedly urged him to exercise caution. If anything were to happen to any one of these individuals under his watch, it would be an unforgivable crime. Qin could no longer find the words to describe his excitement at that moment. He really wanted to find the boxes of these great heroes right away and pay his respects. However, reason stopped his impulse, preventing him from recklessly running off to search for them. His most important task now was not to extol the heroes, but to help the Ark quickly repair its equipment and perfect the thawing process. Just when Qin was full of energy and busy, thousands of kilometers away on a large ranch, a small soldier was frowning as he cleaned up the mountain of animal dung in front of him. Varent did not expect that just because of one correct report, he would end up in such a situation. He went from being a leisurely soldier in the Legion to a farmer on a ranch, living among cattle and manure every day, taking care of the animals every day, and cleaning up the mess that never seems to get clean is one thing. What makes him most anxious is that his actions have affected his entire class. Including the class monitor, All 7 students in the class have been assigned by Lieutenant 1 to this monotonous and dull livestock farm far away from the base. Due to him, even the friends in the class who used to be close have turned against him and spoken harshly, severing their relationships. Every day, there are companions who can't control their anger and come specifically to humiliate and insult him, even resorting to physical violence. Out of guilt in his heart, Belant always adopts a silent endurance attitude towards violent assaults. Even when he is beaten painfully, he does not retaliate against the assailant. Only when he is alone does he vent his inner frustrations and gloomy feelings on livestock and weeds. Damn it, it's because of this kid that we ended up in this hellhole. I really want to kill him. One soldier stepped out from the group of smokers, glaring at Barrett, who was busy cleaning up the mess. He was naturally one of Barrett's classmates from the ranch, affected by his troubles. Once, he had a very good relationship with Barrett. They used to talk about everything and were very close. But now, they treated each other like enemies, and he was among those who bullied Barrett every day. Yeah, still trying to take credit and climb up the ranks. What confidential intelligence? Nonsense. Another soldier spat, echoing the sentiment. Life these days is truly unbearable. Every day is a grueling struggle, working ourselves to the bone, and no amount of washing can mask the awful smell clinging to us. The most frustrating part is that besides the cows and sheep everywhere, there's not even a place to relax, there's nowhere to unwind. All of this is because of that bastard Barrett. Almost everyone in the squad hates him to the core. If it weren't for the regulations of the military, Private Barrett would have been taken out by the soldiers who despise him long ago. All right. It's on to this point, and I doubt Ballant ever expected it. We've taught him a lesson many times over these days, and the fire is almost burned out. Let's forget it. If we have the energy, we should think about how to leave this place. The one who spoke up was the sergeant major. Although he seemed to be defending the private, in fact, he hated Ballant the most. Originally, he tried hard to curry favor with officers at all levels, even going so far as to slip money to the higher-ups during card games and meals, all in hopes of winning their goodwill and securing a chance for promotion. Just when things were finally looking up, Ballant's clever antics ruined everything. How could the sergeant not resent him? Yet, in front of the ordinary soldiers, he still needed to maintain the image of a magnanimous officer to gain everyone's support. However, in the past few days, the sergeant's mood has improved significantly. After years of effort, he has finally seen results. News has come from the Army that his promotion order will be communicated in the next few days. By then, he will be able to take his team and leave this stinky, dilapidated place. Of course, he won't be taking the private with him. It's best to let this undisciplined kid stay here and continue to deal with the mess. The cursing soldiers did not notice that Lieutenant Carter, the owner of the ranch, was listening with great interest to their conversation, his squinting eyes fixed intently on the direction of the private. A soldier abandoned by his peers, filled with hatred. A poor soul who has completely lost the chance for promotion and advancement. Isn't such a person exactly what I need? Perhaps I should observe a little longer and wait until he is completely disillusioned with the Army before I approach him casually. Barrett, who was focused on using work to mask his low spirits, did not realize that he had already become prey in the eyes of others. The news from the sergeant was indeed accurate. Just a few days later, the orders from above arrived. Watching his colleagues excitedly follow the squad leader onto the transport aircraft, Belant felt a deep bitterness and despair within. He understood that he had been completely abandoned by his comrades, and for the remaining decades of his military career, he would probably have to live among these cattle and sheep. Remembering the vow he had once made to his family, promising that he would make something of himself in the Army, his heart twisted in pain, and he felt utterly ashamed. What future could a soldier who spends all day among beasts possibly have? After retiring and returning home, this would likely become a topic of ridicule among neighbors, leaving his family unable to hold their heads high. If only he hadn't acted on impulse and reported the situation to the lieutenant. What's wrong? Feeling sad about your friends leaving? Just as Ballant was wallowing in self-pity, a thick hand gently patted him on the shoulder. Ballant turned around and saw it was the ranch's elder statesman, Lieutenant Carter. "No, Commander, I'm not sad." Barron straightened his body immediately and shouted loudly. Although his expression seemed so determined, the trembling voice still betrayed his sorrowful mood at that moment. "Young man, don't be insincere. If you're sad, just be sad. There's no need to hide it. Don't lose heart. As long as you're still alive, there's hope." Lieutenant Carter encouraged Barrett with a punch and casually asked, "Do you have time tonight?" "Yes, sir." Barant thought the lieutenant's words were unnecessary. There was plenty of free time after finishing work on the ranch. Was there really a need to ask? All right, come to warehouse number 3 at midnight. Remember, you can only come alone, and don't alert anyone else. Yes, Commander. Barant didn't understand why he was being asked to go to the warehouse alone at night, but he agreed nonetheless. When the commander calls, one must go even if reluctant. Moreover, he was curious about what the lieutenant, who was being so mysterious by inviting him out in the middle of the night, actually wanted to do. On a moonlit night, the soldiers who had worked all day were all sound asleep, snoring loudly. Barant quietly got up, tiptoed away from his bed, and, after making sure he hadn't woken anyone, he left the dormitory and headed towards warehouse number 3. As Baronet walked through the warehouse door, he was surprised to find that he was not the only one who had come here in the middle of the night. In addition to the smiling Lieutenant Carter, there were a dozen familiar faces mixed in as well. Among them were the chef from the mess hall, drivers from the transport team, comrades from his own unit, and colleagues from other formations. These people were dressed quite strangely, with white robes over their military uniforms, including the lieutenant. A spacious area had also been cleared in the center of the warehouse, illuminated by several large candles that cast a bright light on everything around. The scene before him felt very peculiar. Baronet couldn't shake the feeling that he had seen a similar scene somewhere before, but it had been so long that he couldn't recall it at the moment. "Belong, come here." "Yes, stand right there and stretch out your hands." Lieutenant Carter greeted him with a friendly expression, while several acquaintances took the initiative to pull him to the center of the clearing and encouraged him to spread his arms wide. "Barrett, do not move. That's an order." Lieutenant Carter quickly intervened as Barrett was about to retract his outstretched hands. Barrett complied and kept his hands extended, not daring to pull them back. Lieutenant Carter first took out a strange stick and tapped it on Balant's head, shoulders, and other parts a few times. Then he began to read aloud loudly, and the people around him followed suit, chanting loudly along with the lieutenant. Barrett looked at the strange actions of these people in confusion, feeling increasingly uneasy. In his memory, it seemed like something was about to emerge. Before he could figure it out, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his hands and let out a cry of surprise. It turned out that at some point, Lieutenant Carter's stick had transformed into a small knife, and the sharp blade had sliced 2 cross-shaped wounds into his hands, with blood oozing out from the cuts and dripping onto the ground. "O merciful Holy Lord, please pay attention to your faithful followers. Take away evil and filth and bring us." Lieutenant Carter, with several cuts and blood flowing painfully, ignored the agony and continued to chant to himself, while Barrett howled, "Prot's Jow, you are Prot's followers." Blanc finally remembered where he had seen this familiar scene before. It was in a hall of military discipline education. He couldn't care less about his hands, still bleeding. He screamed in horror. The cult of Proteus is well known, and this name is an incredibly taboo one throughout the Drutan Empire. Whether it's the nobility who see themselves as superior or ordinary commoners, no one wishes to have even the slightest connection to this terrifying name. Anyone associated with the cult of Proteus faces the harshest and most ruthless crackdown from the Empire's authorities. Every year, countless people are imprisoned or lose their lives due to their ties to the cult of Proteus. No one wants to hear about or engage with anything or anyone related to this name, let alone participate in the rituals of this forbidden religion. Since entering the academy, Balant has been taught to hate and destroy the Protheus faith. He has witnessed firsthand the tragic circumstances of some neighbors, friends, and comrades who have been devastated by this evil religion, leading to broken families and shattered lives. For him, the Protheus faith is undoubtedly a monstrous threat, a terrifying matter that must never be approached. But what he saw now was a group of the Empire's most loyal soldiers openly conducting an evil ritual at the military base. He found himself inexplicably caught up in it, and just thinking about the terrifying torture rumored to occur in the military observation department and the dreadful punishment that his loved ones back home were about to face filled him with a chilling fear, causing his whole body to tremble. This is a conspiracy. He wanted to turn and run, but his limbs felt weak, and he couldn't take a step. Around him were clearly soldiers of an evil cult, all watching him with their chilling, inscrutable gazes, and a few had already reached for their waists. Balani desperately wanted to escape from this place at all costs, but he didn't have the courage to act. He understood that since he had been trapped in this scheme, these fanatical cultists lurking in the shadows would not let him go easily. Once he started to run, he would probably end up with several terrifying holes in his body before he even reached the exit. In just a short moment of prayer, Ballant's clothes were already soaked with his own cold sweat. Holding onto a glimmer of hope and possibility, he forced a smile at the lieutenant who had just finished praying and with a strained smile said, "Sir, are you joking? Really? It's really very interesting, haha. Private Barrett, do you think this is a joke?" The second in command of the ranch, Lieutenant Stuka, glared at him sternly and spoke first. "This? Huh? Tu didn't see anything. I don't know anything. I will keep my mouth shut. Please let me go. I swear, I will never tell anyone about this. I'm begging you." Belanti's last glimmer of hope was shattered as he lowered his head and pleaded desperately with those around him. The Prot's religion was truly terrifying, and he did not want, nor was he willing, to be associated with such a dreadful faith. The followers here were all former comrades and colleagues. He hoped that, out of friendship, they would let him off the hook. "Barrett, you have personally experienced and seen everything here. Do you still naively believe that it has nothing to do with you? Have you forgotten how you came to this place? How your commander and your comrades treated you? In this brutal and cold empire, do you think you have any future or hope? Cast aside those unrealistic delusions, this empire is already decayed and rotten. Everything about it exudes a nauseating smell of blood. It is a wicked realm built upon countless corpses and sorrow. Come, join us, and become a faithful follower of the Holy Lord. Let us cleanse this empire with the most loyal and pure blood and passion. Let the dawn of peace illuminate every inch of land, so that everyone no longer fears, bleeds, or lives in terror and worry. Join us, and fight with us for ideals and justice." Lieutenant Carter's plump face seemed to be suddenly painted with a magical dye, appearing so devout and radiant. He extended his hand to the other with the kindest and most approachable smile. No, please let me go. I really don't want to." Lieutenant Carter's hand was like a beast ready to devour, causing Barrett to panic and retreat repeatedly. Years of indoctrination by the Empire had instilled in him a deep-seated aversion to the Prot's religion, one that could not be easily shattered by a few inflammatory words. Join the Prots? He wouldn't even want to come into close contact with it. How could he be foolish enough to get involved in such a hopeless, reactionary religion that could only operate in the darkness? Don't want to? Baronet, do you think there are any other choices now? Lieutenant Carter put away his hypocritical smile and said with a mocking sneer, "You have already joined our gathering and taken a blood oath in front of the Lord. You are officially a member of the Prot's faith. Withdraw? Not participate? Do you really think you have any room for choice? Abandon your futile struggle. In the embrace of the Lord, you will find warmth and peace. Those who join will have eternal life, while those who reject will die." Ballant let out a gasp upon hearing this, his hands trembling as he raised them in front of him. The cross-shaped wound on his palm, still oozing blood, turned his face pale and left him feeling cold all over. Having received an education in the Empire, he understood very well what the lieutenant meant by the blood oath. It was a ritual that the Protest Church required for the recruitment of followers. Once the blood oath was completed, the person was recognized as a true believer, forever bound to the Protest Church. No, this wasn't voluntary. Not voluntary. Ballant stared blankly at his hands, murmuring to himself. His eyes were filled with despair. Although he had taken the blood oath under unclear circumstances, he could no longer escape from his identity as a formal member of the Protest Church. Whether he was willing or not, the identity of an evil cultist would always weigh heavily on him. The Imperial law enforcement agencies wouldn't care whether you were forced or not. They treated all Protest Church members the same and would spare no one. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, little sister. I didn't mean to." Regret and frustration overwhelmed him, and Ballant could no longer bear the immense blow. He collapsed to the ground and began to cry uncontrollably. "Grandmaster, is it really appropriate for us to forcibly bring him into the church? What if?" Stuka looked at the second-class soldier who was crying uncontrollably, tugging at Lieutenant Larrocat's sleeve and quietly asking in a very soft voice. "The highest leader of the Protest Church is the Pope, followed by archbishops, bishops, and clergy, as well as grand priests, priests, and ordinary believers. Generally, those who are active in public are mainly clergy and grand priests. Lieutenant Carter is one of the key individuals responsible for expanding the church's influence on Earth and the livestock planet. There's no way around it. The Empire's crackdown on the church is becoming increasingly severe, and it's getting harder to recruit ordinary believers. I had no choice but to resort to this desperate measure. Don't worry, I've been observing Barrett for quite a while, and he will become an excellent new force for the church." Lieutenant Carter sighed and shared his plan. He was confident in his ability to assess people, and he believed that this seemingly weak private would surely become a steadfast and useful believer. After crying for a while, Bellani finally managed to stop the endless flow of tears and resignedly stood up. Things had reached this point, and it was useless to be sad any longer. The most important thing now was to figure out how to conceal his identity and avoid being discovered by the law enforcement agencies. He raised his head and saw the high, incomplete moon on the horizon. He had never felt the moonlight as cold and desolate as it was tonight, sending chills throughout his body. The moonlight tonight is really beautiful, but it looks a bit strange. After a busy day, Qin stepped out of the base and sat in a hidden spot at the entrance of the mine, gazing up at the vast sky and the bright moon. Beside him was a small mechanical unit directly controlled by the ARC system. After hundreds of years, even non-human intelligent programs felt a hint of curiosity about the current environment of Earth. It's a pity we will never see the round, full moon like a pearl again. The mechanical body controlled by Feng Zhou looked up at the moon and lamented. Since the arrival of the Drutans in the solar system, the suffering of Earth has begun. Countless famous mountains and rivers have been flattened. Great rivers and lakes have been destroyed, and grasslands and forests have turned into wastelands. Even the moon has not escaped this calamity. The mutual attacks between the Drutans and the Earth Defense Forces have subjected this satellite, which has protected its home planet for millions of years, to unimaginable torment. Its area has significantly decreased, and its shape has undergone drastic changes due to the explosions. The full moon of August 15th has been completely erased from human history, leaving only a moon that is perpetually uneven, resembling something gnawed by a dog, hanging in the sky. This can only be described as a regret, a kind of helpless sorrow. Ark, how is the plan to unfreeze the base members coming along? I'm worried that if we take too long, it will increase their injuries. Once they reach their limit, it will be too late for anything. Qin withdrew his gaze and asked the question that concerned him the most. The progress is going smoothly. All the necessary equipment and materials are ready, and I have also repaired several medical machines specifically for this purpose. They will be the main force in the practical work. After I return, I will conduct another thorough check, and we should be able to start the first thawing experiment tomorrow. Ark answered seriously, not revealing his concerns to the young officer in front of him. According to the data analysis, the thawing experiment would not go smoothly. The freezing period was too long, making it impossible to determine what would happen to these severely damaged individuals after a successful thaw. Everything depends on the results of tomorrow's first experiment. All right, I need to work hard too. Let's go back. Hearing Feng Zhou's words, Qin stood up excitedly. He really wanted to see those great figures that were only recorded in history textbooks appear in front of him, to chat together, work together, and share the little moments of life. Ark, pay close attention to the medical procedure. We can't afford any mistakes. Qin anxiously stared at the screen, displaying the scene of the first mission for the thawed base members. In reality, he really wanted to go over and lend a hand, but unfortunately, due to his insignificant medical skills, he could only stay here and watch. For this experiment, Qin and Ark made thorough preparations, taking into account various possible scenarios. They also prepared ample emergency supplies, such as artificial plasma and gene repair solutions. It is particularly worth mentioning the gene repair solution. Originally, Ark had intercepted part of Qin's genetic samples to prepare for the cultivation of a biological function remedy. However, when Qin inadvertently took out a specialized syringe from a military medical kit designed for injured soldiers, Ark immediately became very interested. Data analysis showed that with some adjustments, this syringe could be combined with genetic fragments to develop a new type of human gene repair solution. This greatly reduced the time spent on cultivating biological skill remedies. Experiments conducted on small animals captured from outside demonstrated that this new type of agent had remarkable effects on repairing damaged bodies and quickly replenishing biological energy, making it particularly suitable for use on thawed individuals. Major, please don't worry. The medical procedure has undergone very detailed analysis and simulation, and there is absolutely no possibility of failure. Now, the only thing we need to be concerned about is the physical condition of these frozen individuals. After all, it has been too long, and the success rate is quite debatable. Feng Zhou is not worried about the medical process. He is more concerned about whether the personnel from the base can withstand the drastic change in environment, and whether their fragile bodies can endure in a normal environment. Yes, I know that. What are the chances of a successful surgical outcome? I mean, the possibility of saving the patient and having them survive without any complications. Qin also understood what the intelligent program meant and was equally concerned about this aspect. The success rate of the surgery is over 90%, and the safety factor is quite high, so you can rest assured. However, after thawing, the chances of keeping the patient alive and helping them recover healthily is only between 20 to 30%. Fang Zhou calculated for a moment and replied with a look of regret. So low. Qin frowned in disappointment, as this success rate was indeed lower than he had expected. 30% means that only 9,000 out of 30,000 people can truly survive, and this does not even include those who might face complications from failed surgeries or other unexpected circumstances. If the success rate were only 20%, then the number would be even smaller. Sigh. If only the medical department of the fleet were here with their advanced technology, they could definitely help most of the frozen individuals recover healthily. Qin chuckled to himself, realizing how foolish he was to be lost in thought at a time like this. If the medical department were here, he would have already returned to his beloved flagship. He couldn't help but wonder where the fleet had sailed to by now and whether they had found the main fleet. The surgery was successful. The patient suffered no injuries, and we are currently performing the final repair treatment. The specific situation will need to be observed before we can fully understand. Just as Qin was lost in thought, he heard Fang Zhou's excited voice. He quickly gathered his thoughts and looked through the screen to observe. The first person to be rescued was a 23-year-old ordinary soldier from the base defense force. He was chosen mainly because of his youth, relatively strong physique, and good health, which minimized the chances of failure. Now, this young soldier is quietly lying in a pool filled with a repairing liquid connected to a breathing tube at his mouth, with dozens of tubes of varying thickness inserted into his body. A service robot stands by the edge of the pool, constantly monitoring the patient's reactions, while a computer continuously records relevant data to gather useful information for future rescue operations. From the perspective of the observation lens, the sickly pale color has gradually faded from his body. Although his skin still appears frighteningly white, it is evident that he is much better than before. There are signs that the functions of his heart and other internal organs are gradually recovering. Everything indicates that this first rescued individual is moving in a positive direction. It looks perfectly normal. Congratulations, Ark. I wonder how long he needs to stay in the repair fluid and when he'll wake up. Seeing that the surgery was successful, Qin finally set aside his worries and asked with a smile. He had been staying at this base for over a month now, and most of the time he could only chat with Ark, this intelligent program. He did not deny that Ark was rich in knowledge and information, but he felt that talking about these things was somewhat monotonous and bland. No matter how human-like the intelligent program was, it was still just a program, and in some aspects, it could not compare to a living person. What he really wanted now was to have some companions soon, which would make life less lonely and desolate. Thank you. The surgery went very smoothly. However, that doesn't mean it's a success. The most crucial part is to wait until the patient truly recovers. The time it takes to regain consciousness is unpredictable. It could be a few days or even a few months. It all depends on him. The repair fluid is not a cure-all. Fang Zhou's programmed response only made Qin shrug his shoulders. It was already quite good that the other party could reply to him like this. With a successful example, Qin's enthusiasm was fully mobilized. He participated more diligently in the efforts to repair equipment and fix various types of machinery. More frozen individuals were extracted from the lower refrigeration chamber of the Ark for defrosting as conditions permitted. However, the related actions came to a halt after successfully unfreezing over 100 individuals. First, there were not enough repair solutions and containers available to store the patients. Second, the specific recovery conditions after surgery were still unclear. Without more successful examples, the Ark, including Qin himself, would not recklessly unfreeze everyone at once. Only when the first batch of individuals can walk healthily within the base and sufficient data is gathered will a large-scale unfreezing operation officially commence. Name, position, unit number. 3 months, a full 3 months had passed, and only then did the first soldier thawed from the cryopreservation chamber manage to crawl out. During this time, various unexpected situations arose, and the medical team was so busy that they had no time to rest. If they were not all mechanical bodies, normal humans would have long since been unable to endure it. Throughout this period, Qin fully understood what the low success rate mentioned by Ark really meant. Although the first batch of personnel was successfully thawed, During the subsequent recovery process, an unimaginable number of ailments loomed like dark clouds over the repair room. Watching one future comrade after another lose their lives due to the torment of illness and the natural deterioration of their organs left him with a heavy feeling, as if his heart were being twisted in pain. Out of 100 frozen individuals, only 15 remained in the repair chamber, and this success rate was even lower than Ark had predicted. Now, Qin was facing the first soldier to regain health, patiently inquiring about his condition. "Report, sir. My name is Han Weigua. I was born in March 2017 and enlisted in 2032, holding the rank of lieutenant. I have participated in dozens of battles, receiving 2 third-class National Defense Medals, 1 second-class National Protection Medal, and 1 first-class Bravery Medal. I am part of the 3rd Fleet of the Chinese Guardian Ship, serving as the squad leader of the 4th Platoon in the 6th Division." "Sir, report completed." The young man, now fully recovered, stood upright as he delivered his report. "There's no need to be formal. Please have a seat, Comrade Lieutenant." Qin waved his hand to signal the other person to sit down. When he first heard the report, he was secretly taken aback. He had originally thought that he was waking up just a private, but unexpectedly, it turned out to be an officer and a combat hero at that. This was all due to Fang Zhou not providing detailed enough information. All personnel below the rank of mid-level officer were uniformly labeled as soldiers, with no specific intelligence, which caught him off guard. A combat hero who has received several medals would command great respect even from senior officers in the original fleet, let alone him, a major who has only received a campaign participation medal. "Lieutenant, besides these, do you remember anything else? For example, family, friends, anything like that? Think carefully." Seeing the other person sit down, Qin continued to ask kindly, "Family? Friends?" Han Weigua frowned, remaining silent for a long time before finally looking up and saying, "I'm sorry, sir. I just can't remember. The moment I try to think about these things, my mind goes completely blank, and I get a terrible headache. Hey, never mind. Let's call it a day. The security work at the base still needs your effort. Keep it up." Qin sighed, giving up on his attempt to continue questioning. Over the past few days, he had lost count of how many times he had tried to ask the other party questions, but aside from those few words just now, he hadn't been able to get anything else out. He felt disappointed and was ready to give up. "By the way, Lieutenant Han, if you can remember anything, please be sure to tell me. Go on." Seeing the lieutenant about to leave, Qin couldn't help but say one more thing. Han Weigua paused for a moment, gave a military salute to Qin, and then silently turned around to continue fulfilling his duties. In fact, there was hardly anything worth guarding at the base right now. There were no enemies, and the people inside rarely went out. However, for a professional soldier like Han Weigua, not having anything to do might lead to other psychological issues out of boredom. Since he was willing to patrol, Qin saw no reason to stop him. "Still can't get any information?" After Han Weiguo's figure completely disappeared behind the door, Fang Zhou, who had been silently observing the situation, also emerged from the screen. "Yeah, it's still the same. Besides remembering those basic details, I can't recall anything else," Qin said with frustration, rubbing his forehead. This situation was beyond his expectations. After being rescued and rehabilitated, Han Weigua, apart from still remembering his identity and some simple basic information, was left with only the battle instincts and military qualities that he would never forget, with no memory of anything else. This state of memory loss, which cannot be classified as either temporary or permanent, is probably related to the long years spent frozen in a cryogenic chamber, causing significant damage to his physical structure. Although having the battle instincts as a lieutenant does not affect his future life and work, Qin still hopes that the person standing in front of him is someone with complete memories. He can only pray that in the future, successfully rehabilitated personnel will not encounter situations like that of Lieutenant Han Weigua. It turns out that the greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. After Han Weigua successfully recovered, the remaining 15 individuals gradually regained consciousness and began restorative treatment. They exhibited the same symptoms as Han Weigua, having clear memories of the skills they had learned and their identities, but forgetting everything else. In the face of this phenomenon, even the intelligent system with infinite knowledge was powerless and had to helplessly admit that this was a side effect of a successful thawing, hoping that time would allow them to return to normal. From the analysis of the personnel who were unfrozen earlier, it is most likely that those with better physical fitness, such as combat personnel, will successfully awaken. The survival chances for service personnel and technical staff are relatively low, and their recovery will be slower compared to combat personnel. Among the 16 base members who have regained mobility, 11 are combat members, 4 service personnel, and only 1 is a technician. It is evident how weak the condition of the technical staff is, making it difficult for them to survive the initial dangerous phase. Qin Zhen actually hopes that the survival rate of technical personnel can be higher. After all, there will be many areas in the future that will rely on them. Just because there are no warships now doesn't mean there won't be any in the future. Once he possesses interstellar spaceships that can freely fly in space, technical talents will be essential. Another thing that worries Qin Zhen is the big names on those lists. If these people also lose their memories like the current group, it would undoubtedly be a tremendous loss for both him and the base. Their rich experience in combat command is an invaluable asset to the team. Even a little bit of forgetfulness is hard to accept. He finds it hard to imagine that these heroes mentioned in textbooks are the same as the current personnel who, aside from their own functions, know nothing and have blank minds. The arc originally planned to wait for a while to organize and analyze all the collected information in order to avoid the occurrence of side effects and achieve a truly perfect thawing. Unfortunately, a sudden, unexpected event forced it to abandon the research work and accelerate the thawing process. That is the energy supply system of the base. It was originally estimated to provide energy for over 1,000 hours, but there has been a problem with the biological reactor, and the energy supply is rapidly depleting, which has already affected the supply to the cold storage room. Hundreds of cold storage boxes have started to thaw prematurely due to insufficient energy. At this point, the losses are irretrievable, and Qin Zhen can only watch helplessly as these people fall into eternal sleep due to the rapid thawing. In order to prevent such a tragic event from happening again, he was receiving maintenance guidance from the Ark while working hard to fix the malfunctioning reactor. Unfortunately, among the personnel that had been thawed, there were no professionals with expertise in maintenance systems. Relying solely on himself and a few makeshift mechanical units, it was impossible to fully repair the reactor. They could only temporarily alleviate the rate of energy depletion. The Ark also began to work hard to accelerate the rescue efforts, prioritizing the selection of important command personnel, scientists, and engineers. If these individuals encounter problems, then the mission it had guarded for hundreds of years would lose its very meaning. Marshal Kai Zhenjie, one of the founders and leaders of the Chinese Guardian warship. It is rumored that he possesses extraordinary powers, allowing him to obtain things that others cannot. There have always been many rumors about him, and he has been a subject of discussion among experts and scholars who enjoy studying history. At the moment of humanity's impending final victory in the 18-year war, he and his followers mysteriously disappeared, never to be seen again. His fate remains a mystery, much like that of the heroes who vanished during the same period, providing ample imaginative space for numerous historians and professors. Now, this legendary figure, who holds high prestige and reputation among human society, is sitting in a coffee chair, leisurely sipping on a drink. Surrounding him are a dozen or so equally illustrious middle-aged men and women. The chief of staff of the Chinese frigate is General Kai Zhenhao. The commander of the 1st Frigate Formation is General Jiang Jianfeng. Dr. Liu Mei, a renowned expert in the medical field who has mastered countless miraculous medicines and treatment methods. Dr. Kong Ming, an excellent engineering technician and designer of weapons and warships for the space age. The fierce and aggressive killing god, admired even by the Drutan military, is Major General Gu Jing'an. Major General Qin Zhen, a battle expert who has planned well-known campaigns such as the Polar Counteroffensive and the Lunar Assault, shares the same name as Major Qin Zhen. These legendary figures who shine brilliantly in the hearts of humanity are now sitting in a circle, chatting and laughing. If a historian were to witness this scene, they would probably be so overwhelmed with excitement that they might suffer a heart attack and collapse on the ground. Looking at the circle of important figures in the distance, whom he needed to look up to, Qin Zhen's lips revealed a bitter smile of helplessness. Although he and Fang Zhou had successfully rescued all the important individuals and helped them regain their health, the annoying aftereffects still clung to them like stubborn gum. These individuals, like other successfully rescued members of the base, had lost most of their memories. The wisdom and strategies they once possessed were deeply buried in the unknown due to the memory block. While their current abilities still aligned with those of commanders, engineers, or scholars, they now required time and learning to regain their skills. It seemed that returning to the level of once commanding the scene was a distant dream. Major Qin Zhen, please come to the command center alone. Since the bigwigs were awakened, Fang Zhou's attitude toward Qin Zhen seems to have cooled considerably. Much of the time, the focus has been on those important figures, and aside from their official duties, the communication between the two has significantly decreased. For some orders, he even restrictively refuses to comply. Regarding the transformation of the intelligent program, Qin also feels somewhat helpless. After all, those people outside are the actual leaders of the Arkansas. Before he unintentionally stumbled into this place, they were the true masters of the intelligent program. If these big figures can return to normal, Qin would not mind handing over all his rights and obeying their commands. Being a subordinate to great figures is not an insult. Major Qin, after these days of interaction, I have made a clear judgment. Here, I officially take on the legacy of the Supreme Command of the Chinese Guardianship and acknowledge you as the commander of the Chinese Guardianship and Ark Base. Major Qin, no, Major General Qin, please accept your military uniform and related items. Ark spoke to Qin with a seriousness that had never been seen before, enunciating each word clearly. At this moment, he had changed into a formal Chinese military uniform, looking like a dignified elderly general. Major General? Me, the commander-in-chief. Qin was completely stunned, standing there in a daze, unsure of what to do. He initially thought that Fang Zhou had called him to ask him to give up his temporary role as commander and hand over the authority to those people outside. Yes, General Qin. My interactions with the leaders have made me realize that they can no longer be qualified rulers. The damage from the freeze is simply too great. According to the decisions made by the leaders before the freeze, if unforeseen circumstances arise and they are unable to fulfill their roles as commanders, I will be responsible for selecting the most suitable leader for the base. Given the current situation here, do you think I have any other options? I understand now, and I am willing to accept your appointment. But just a major general? I'm only a major. Suddenly being promoted to major general seems a bit too fast, doesn't it? Qin realized, no wonder the intelligent program had been so inconsistent with him lately. It was actually assessing the final candidate for commander. It makes sense that the intelligent program chose him in the end. After all, he was the only one capable of taking on the role of commander. Others, to varying degrees, were affected by aftereffects and were simply not suitable to be the coordinating commander. As Qin accepted the appointment, a robot presented him with a set of general's uniform that had been prepared long ago. The shining stars on the shoulders of the uniform dazzled Qin's eyes, making him hesitant to take it. Commander, put on your military uniform. You need it. Think about the people outside, and you'll realize its importance. Qin was persuaded by Fang Zhou and opened his heart. Indeed, every person out there was a shining star, with the lowest rank being colonel. It was uncomfortable for a major to command a group of senior officers. He truly needed this uniform to establish his leadership position. Realizing this, Qin no longer hesitated and readily accepted the military uniform, changing into it right away. Carefully touching the golden stars, he felt as if he were in a dream. Who could imagine that a mere major could instantly transform into a general? Such a change was indeed too fast to breathe. Commander, I suggest incorporating Marshal Kai Jinjia and his team into the advisory group, turning them into a direct force that answers only to you. Although they have lost most of their memories, wherever there is a need for war or assistance, they will surely provide you with an unexpected surprise, Fang Zhou said, feeling relieved as he handed over everything, his face breaking into a smile as he made the suggestion. I accept your suggestion. This is indeed a good idea. Qin immediately agreed. It is indeed very difficult to arrange for these big figures, and establishing a consulting advisory group is undoubtedly the best place for them. Before the energy reactor was restabilized, Qin led his increasingly growing team and managed to perform a thawing treatment on all the base members just moments before the entire refrigeration system failed. This early action brought both joy and sorrow. The base has gained a lot of personnel with various departments and a full range of skilled individuals, but we also lost many hands. Countless people did not survive the final repair phase and fell along the way during treatment. Among the 30,000 people, a total of over 5,300 were rescued, failing to reach even the expected 20% survival rate. Among those who survived, the most were combat personnel, followed by service personnel, and lastly technicians and scientists. Apart from a few physically stronger individuals who have regained their ability to move freely, the others are still in the stage of careful recuperation. As the number of personnel increases, the consumption of supplies also rises. Due to the severe decay of store materials over time, the survival of the base personnel has become the most pressing issue that needs to be addressed. The conditions on the ground dictate that they cannot appear at will, and they must think of alternative solutions. Looking at the dwindling supplies on the data display, Qin felt for the first time how heavy the responsibility on his shoulders was. Rubbing his tired eyelids, he looked up at the Ark and said, "Gather the members of the general staff and the advisors of the advisory group. I need help. Everyone, this is the current situation at the base. The longer we delay, the more unfavorable it becomes for us. I hope everyone can come together and come up with a solution." After introducing all the circumstances, Qin looked eagerly at his colleagues present, especially those former high-ranking officials. To be honest, he was just an ordinary major commander. Previously, he had mainly been focused on technical roles, and although he had received training in the staff department, he still lacked the experience to command a large base with ease. Now, with both internal and external situations not looking good, he truly couldn't think of a solution. According to the commander's introduction, the environment we are in is indeed not very good. If we go to the surface to search for food, a few people can hide, but if the number increases and we go out frequently, it will easily attract the attention of the Drudens and expose the location of the entire base. With fewer people, the supplies we can gather are hardly sufficient. It's indeed a tough problem. Let's all think of some solutions. Seeing that everyone was frowning and silent, Marshal Kai Zhenjie from the advisory group was the first to break the silence. Perhaps it is the lingering influence of Marshal Kai Zhenjie. Although everyone has lost their memories, they still choose to heed his words. The once dull conference room suddenly became lively, with everyone expressing their opinions and seeking to solve the difficult problem at hand. Looking back at the previous quiet atmosphere and then at the current bustling scene, Qin could only sigh at the leader's tremendous charisma, gaining a deeper understanding of his own position. The people before him were all elites among humanity, and earning their full recognition would require a long journey ahead, as trust is something that takes time to build. Can we consider the synthetic food machine? I seem to remember that we conducted related research during the war, and it should have been completed by now. General Kai Zhenhao did not look at Qin, but turned to Dr. Kong Ming. In his memory, it seemed that this research was related to him. Kong Ming scratched his bald forehead, which had long since turned into a patch of white, and said apologetically, "It seems like it's my research, and it's almost time to complete it. But I don't know what will happen after the freezing." The doctor did complete his research on the artificial food synthesis machine, which has been widely used on interstellar warships, and he even showcased a series of products. However, all of this was completed by external researchers after the base was sealed off, so I don't have any relevant information here. The resource library only retains Dr. Kang's previous semi-finished products, and if we want to restore it, it will probably take 2 to 3 months. ARC timely joined the conversation, and it obtained this information from discussions with Qin, as well as from the data absorbed from the auxiliary system carried by the combat suit. Unfortunately, the resources in Qin's auxiliary system are limited, so the help it can provide is not substantial. 3 months is too long. I'm afraid the current resources won't be enough to support us until then. As the first to be assigned by Qin to handle logistics matters, Major General Li Feng certainly had the most authority to speak. Having previously served as the head of logistics for the frigate, Major General Li took charge and managed the logistics work in an orderly and clear manner, alleviating a lot of pressure from Qin. In contrast to the other advisors who were always immersed in the data room, intensively studying various new knowledge, Major General Li, who had the most contact with Qin, was the closest to this young commander among them. By the way, I just remembered, there should actually be several secret supply warehouses near the base. The Ark should know their exact locations. I just wonder if the war has destroyed them? General Kai Zhenhao pondered for a moment and finally called out, A1, A3, A4, B2, and B5 have all been destroyed or cleared out by later individuals, leaving only warehouses A2, B1, B3, and B4 intact. Perhaps we can find some supplies there, but given how much time has passed, I can't guarantee that the supplies inside are still in good condition. After thoroughly searching the data, Ark said, since he was officially activated, he had connected to the network of other supply storage bases and had only received responses from some of them. Based on the intelligence from all the advisors, I have made the following decision. Let's take a look and see what everyone thinks. Qin said as he noticed that everyone had discussed quite a bit. I can send a small team to the resource base at night to search for supplies. We'll try to bring back as much useful material as we can under the cover of darkness. We can also begin researching Dr. Kang's artificial biosynthesis machine. I believe that as long as we can find some supplies, it will be enough for us to hold out until the research is completed and we can officially start production. Agreed. Surprisingly, the consultants unanimously approved Qin Jun's proposal without any objections. This uplifted Qin Jun's spirits, receiving everyone's recognition, was also an acknowledgement of his abilities. I think the most pressing issue we need to address now is finding a way out. The Earth has already been turned into a rear base by the Drutans, surrounded by enemy forces. As the saying goes, you can hide for a moment, but not for a lifetime. Sooner or later, they will discover the base. We must plan for an escape route as soon as possible. As a general who has commanded countless battles, Major General Qin Jun's first thought was about the future direction of the base. Leaving Earth is essential, but what we need to address first is the issue with the spacecraft. General Zhang Jianfeng pointed out the crux of the problem, and the people in the meeting room fell silent all at once. Indeed, as the advisory group mentioned, the base is surrounded by enemies on all sides, making it extremely unsafe. To survive, leaving Earth is a necessity. The only headache is that departing from here requires a space warship capable of flight, and it can't be too small considering there are thousands of people here. It's another daunting challenge for a large ship to evade detection by various surveillance equipment without being noticed. Not to mention, there isn't even a half-functioning flying vehicle in the base at the moment. Where can one find a medium to large-sized aircraft that can accommodate thousands of people? Qin Jun couldn't help but feel a headache as he repeatedly contemplated various feasible solutions. Do you all remember the Pandora project? Suddenly, Marshal Kai Zhenjie, who had been silent after speaking, broke into a cheerful smile and said this. Everyone was taken aback for a moment, and then, as if recalling something amusing, they all burst into laughter. Qin Jun looked at the crowd, laughing happily with some confusion. He didn't understand what the Pandora plan was or why it made so many people laugh, so he anxiously asked Ark about it. After Ark explained the entire plan to him, he couldn't help but laugh as well. It turns out that the so-called Pandora project was actually a quirky idea initiated by Marshal Kai Zhenjie during the 18 Years' War. The war at that time was exceptionally intense and brutal, leaving the beautiful Earth in ruins, with various destroyed war weapons and aircraft scattered everywhere. To protect the Earth's environment from further deterioration due to this metallic garbage, Marshal Kai Zhenjie, representing the escort fleet, made a suggestion to the Earth Coalition. The proposal was to gather all the metal debris in one place for centralized processing to avoid environmental pollution. The temporary location for accumulating the garbage was set on the sparsely populated and heavily damaged Australian mainland. Originally, the coalition had only agreed that this waste would be stored temporarily and would be dealt with immediately after the war, along with substantial compensation for the Australian government. However, due to the intensity of the fighting, the amount of metal waste that needed to be processed increased dramatically. By the time the Australian government realized the situation was wrong, the entire country had effectively become a garbage dump, leaving no space for ordinary people to continue living. Left with no choice, the survivors in Australia had to abandon their homes and relocate to the mainland. Because of this temporary prank, Marshal Kai Zhenjie and his escort ship have become the most unpopular figures and organization among Australians. Australia is also the only country that lost its homeland after the start of Earth defense, not due to invaders. Wait, a metal junkyard? After laughing, Qin Jun finally reacted. Since there is a pile of metal waste from all over the world, there must be plenty of materials available to build warships. He might even find some damaged aircraft that could be refurbished. Thinking of this, Qin Jun couldn't help but feel excited. What he needed most right now were materials to manufacture warships. As long as he can find the scarce resources in Australia, he will eventually possess a warship that can freely soar through the universe. I have made my decision. The advisory team will continue to stay at the base to maintain its normal operations. All related matters will temporarily be handled by the advisory team and the Arkansas. I will lead a group of the best warriors to scout Australia, hoping to find something. After Qin Jun finished speaking, all the members of the advisory team smiled at him with relief, clearly pleased that he was able to react appropriately. Hee, it seems that I'm not too foolish after all. Qin Jun chuckled self-deprecatingly. These big shots in the advisory group clearly understood it long ago, yet they kept it to themselves and continued to test me. Who said that heroes are not cunning? The world's geopolitical landscape has changed dramatically due to war. Most islands have either been bombed into the sea or submerged by floods, leaving only the far northern Greenland and Australia still intact. The Japanese archipelago and Great Britain are similar, both reduced to a few pitiful, desolate islands where one can run around the perimeter in a short time. The land connection between North and South America has been blasted into a huge strait, and the territories of countries like Mexico now lie quietly beneath the azure waters. As once the most powerful military force on Earth, the United States has become a primary target for the Drutan's attacks. Aside from some green areas remaining along the coast, other regions have turned into desolate deserts. Among the continents, Eurasia has also suffered devastating blows, but its overall structure remains unchanged. Only the coastal cities and regions have been submerged below sea level. The ARC base was originally located at the junction of the borders of Yunnan, Vietnam, and Myanmar. However, due to the destruction caused by the war, their distance from the sea has actually decreased. By leaving the base and avoiding areas where a Drutan military base might be established, it only takes about 3 days of travel to reach the edge of the sea. At this moment, Qin Jun is leading a group of elite warriors from Han Weigua, advancing quickly towards the seaside, hiding during the day and moving at night. Although the journey is expected to take only 3 days, they took twice as long to reach their destination. It is not that these soldiers are not elite enough, rather, the limited time for travel, the rugged terrain, and the heavy supplies they are carrying have hindered their pace. Sensing the cold, fishy sea breeze in their noses, Qin Jun and the others didn't take a break and immediately began assembling their equipment. They needed to finish everything before dawn to avoid the possibility of being exposed during the day. Due to the Drutan people controlling the entire planet and treating it as a livestock planet, it is impossible for any ships to appear on the ocean surface. Occasionally, small patrol ships can be seen drifting on the sea, but they are merely for vacationing. Given this unique situation, safely reaching Australia by sea is impossible. The only way to avoid the Drutan surveillance is to proceed quietly from the seabed. Because of this, Qin Jun and his team brought a large amount of equipment and parts, which slowed down their progress. As for flying to Australia from the air, that would be tantamount to seeking death. Satellites in global orbit are not to be underestimated. Even the smallest aircraft movements would be detected and recorded, subsequently landing on the desk of the commander of the Drutan Planetary Defense Headquarters. After a night of hard work, just as the sun was about to reveal its first light on the horizon, a small submarine was finally assembled. The technology showcased at the high-tech exhibition has granted people unimaginable creativity. In the 20th century, who could have imagined that a submarine capable of carrying 25 crew members could be assembled overnight by hand, without any docking points or repair facilities, and successfully launched? Thank you for your hard work, Colonel Xie. You should head back right away and be careful on the way, Qin Jun said to Colonel Xie, who had brought the engineering team and transport personnel to this location after a challenging journey. Please don't be polite, Commander. This is what we should do. Take care. Salute. With Colonel Xietian's shout, all the engineers watching the search team board the ship stood up straight and saluted their comrades who were about to embark on their journey. Salute completed, all personnel board the ship and begin diving. Qin Jun finished the salute with his subordinates and immediately issued the order. There wasn't much time left before dawn, and they had to leave the surface of the sea. Xiet Tianmu stared intently at the submarine as it gradually submerged, and only after it disappeared from view did he lower his raised arm. Attention everyone, clean up the traces and prepare for evacuation. Push the construction mesh into the sea. We must not leave behind any flaws. After saying this, Xietian reluctantly watched as the few remaining self-propelled construction robots in the base were pushed into the blue waters. The heaviest external mesh of the entire submarine were brought by these big guys. Without them, Xietian couldn't guarantee that he could piece together a qualified submarine in a short time. He didn't want to leave these big guys behind. It was just that they were moving too slowly and were too large. For the safety of the entire unit, he had no choice but to handle these heroes this way. The submarine that the search team is currently aboard is jokingly nicknamed Dolphin. From the outside, it does resemble a large dolphin. It is equipped with a small nuclear reactor and is coated with a biological camouflage paint that effectively evades typical detection equipment, allowing it to disguise itself as a living creature, or rather, a fish. Apart from the control room, energy room, and workroom, the structure of the entire submarine is quite empty and exceptionally simple. Inside, there are desalination devices and air filtration systems, as well as equipment to generate power, which can address the issues of freshwater and oxygen shortages caused by prolonged submersion. In the middle of the submarine, some medications, fruits, and food are stored, while the ammunition storage area is located near the control room at the front. The typical range of this type of submarine is about 15 to 20 days to reach its destination. This is the only temporary equipment that the base engineering department can provide within such a short period. Fortunately, its quality is very good at least after submerging and operating for a while. It has not encountered any problems. Commander, please come take a look. There's something very strange about this fish underwater. Karambu, a Dunloping who had served for 5 years, had always been responsible for biological detection work. In fact, he was very dissatisfied with what he was doing now compared to sitting in front of a computer screen all day feeling bored. He preferred to be a combat personnel. Even being a gunner would be more interesting than his current job. Today, as usual, he was observing data changes when, just as he was about to doze off, an unusual highlight on the computer caught his attention. After observing for a moment, he had no choice but to call in his superior officer from the same room. "What's wrong, Sergeant Callum? Is there a problem?" Lieutenant Proldo quickly walked over. Among the people in the observation room, he valued Sergeant Callum the most. The job of a biological detector is very dull and tedious. Few people can stick with it for 5 years like Callum. Most people, after enduring a few months of boring torment, will find ways to leave this position. Recently, he had been considering whether to submit a request to the higher-ups for a promotion to the rank of sergeant as a reward. Naturally, he rushed over at the first call from his favorite subordinate. "Is there something wrong, Sergeant?" Lieutenant Proldo leaned closer to the screen, unable to see any issues, and looked over in confusion. "Commander, don't you think the biological response of this fish is too strong? Moreover, it's swimming much faster than the usual dolphins, which is very strange," Kalambu explained, pointing to the area on the screen that was clearly brighter than the other highlights. "Oh, it's this." Captain Proldo nodded in realization. He had noticed it earlier, but hadn't paid much attention to it. Now, upon closer inspection, it was indeed, as the sergeant had said, the situation was somewhat unusual. Maybe this is a mutated dolphin? You know, ever since the Great War on this planet and the frequent use of nuclear weapons by those Earthlings, the flora and fauna here have been affected by radiation, resulting in many mutated creatures. I think this one might be one of them. The long years of peaceful living had dulled Captain Proldo's sharp edges, and since nothing unusual had happened on the surface, he arbitrarily categorized this special situation into what he believed to be the norm. Mutant creatures? Kalambu naturally understood what the lieutenant was referring to. He had seen quite a few mutated plants and animals himself, and in his impression, these products of radiation were all characterized by their brutal, cruel nature and exceptionally strong physical qualities. There was a time when a military high command initiated operations to exterminate these mutated animals to ensure the safety of their troops during outings. Now, these creatures had become quite rare and could only be occasionally found in the vast ocean. Although Kalambu accepted the lieutenant's explanation, he still reminded him, out of professional integrity, "Sir, do we need to contact the combat personnel to bring this mutated dolphin on board? It's unnecessary. Let him go. It's just a mutated fish, not worth wasting precious resources." Lieutenant Proldo rejected his subordinate's suggestion without a second thought. Recently, the people in the military had become exceptionally stingy, nitpicking over everything. If those tightwads found out that precious energy was being used on a fish, they would surely be furious. It's better not to touch this bad luck. Understood. Kalambu didn't insist on his opinion any longer. Since his superior said it wasn't necessary, there was no point in worrying about it. He just needed to focus on doing his job well. However, was this really just a mutated fish? Kalambu lingered on the bright spot for a moment before quickly being distracted by other matters. The lights turned on. It was almost time for his shift change, and he was eager to go to the cafeteria for a good meal. He had woken up too late to catch breakfast, and his stomach was already growling. As they watched the bright spot representing the patrol ship gradually move away from above their heads, the people in the submarine finally let out a breath they had been holding, too afraid to make a sound. They were so lucky not to have been discovered by the other side. The engineering and technology department truly excelled. Their camouflage technology was top-notch. If Captain Proldo knew that he had missed an opportunity for promotion through merit, he would probably be filled with regret. After the crisis, the Dolphin submarine sailed smoothly and did not encounter any other Drudan patrol ships, safely reaching its destination, which has now become the metal junkyard island of Australia. Is this really Australia? The famous vacation destination, known for its sunshine, beaches, and beautiful women? Standing on a small hill made of metal piles, Qin was once again stunned by the scene before him. During his time in the Third Fleet, he had watched various films from the old Earth era more than once. The unique scenery of Australia, with its blue skies, green waters, and countless beautiful women, had sparked countless wonderful fantasies in his mind. He had never imagined that one day he would set foot on this dreamlike land. However, the impact of reality was just too overwhelming. Even though it wasn't his first observation, he still couldn't connect the beautiful Australia of his memories with the reality before him. He felt a sense of disbelief and could not accept it. Indeed, the Australia of today is far from the paradise depicted in the films. A vast expanse of metal waste stretches endlessly, covering the entire visible area. The golden beaches are buried under countless pieces of trash, and sharp metal fragments protrude high above the water surface. The sea is no longer a vibrant green instead. It reflects a dazzling metallic sheen under the sunlight. The air is filled with a strange odor that mixes the scent of decaying metal with oil. The grass and large trees are completely obscured by a dense and chaotic layer of garbage, and it is rare to spot any pleasing greenery in the distance. Hundreds of towering metal mountains, each over 100 meters high, emit a blinding light that makes it hard to open one's eyes. Even the unusually narrow rivers clogged with trash glimmer with silver. Not to mention the legendary kangaroos and koalas under such harsh conditions, it is likely that even the hardiest cockroaches would struggle to survive. War drives people mad, and it is the most terrifying enemy of all living beings. Qin Jun sighed, finally accepting the current situation. This is not the time for long sighs or enjoying the scenery. There are tasks that must be completed and work that needs to be done. First, find a suitable hiding place, and then split into groups of 5 to temporarily search the surrounding environment within 2 kilometers. Pay close attention to the sky. If any situation arises, hide immediately. Qin Jun furrowed his brow as he issued the orders. Now, an additional challenge had been added to his tasks: how to solve the team's daily food supply issue. The food carried on the submarine was only enough for them to reach Australia, and in 2 days, it would be completely depleted. He had originally thought that even if Australia had become a wasteland, food could still be found in the wild. But now he realized he had underestimated the situation. Not to mention animals, there were hardly any ordinary plants around. It seemed they would still have to rely on the submarine's underwater capabilities to catch fish as a substitute. Apart from the discomfort caused by food shortages, this island, which has become a dumping ground, has brought quite a few surprises to Qin Jun and his team. The first discovery was made by a small team led by Lieutenant Han Weigua, who found a wreckage of a severely damaged warship near a garbage mountain. Based on the markings and the record discs found, it is determined that this is the remains of a small British warship, estimated to have been built around the year 2040 and abandoned around 2057. This suggests that after successfully repelling the invaders, the Earth Alliance did not adhere to the original agreement to clean up all the garbage, but instead continued to use the area as a dumping ground for unusable waste. This warship was discarded here because it no longer had any repair value. In addition to the warship, other team members discovered damaged artificial food synthesis machines, various engineering and combat machinery, satellites, cannons, firearms, semi-finished metals, and a wide variety of other items, including 6 battle tanks. It can be said that anything you can imagine can be found here. At this moment, Qin Jun's feelings were very complicated. He didn't know whether to hate or to be grateful to the one who initiated all of this, the Marshal Kaijinjia. A beautiful and prosperous place was ruined by what seemed to be a prank, yet it inadvertently brought hope for liberation to future generations. A greater surprise emerged after the last team of searchers returned. They actually discovered abandoned debris belonging to the Drutan side among a large amount of metal waste. Not only were there remnants of various damaged warships, but there were also fragments of strange instruments and everyday items that were difficult to name. It seemed that after the Drutans took control of Earth, they found themselves unable to deal with this massive garbage island and simply treated it as a landfill, dumping their own difficult-to-handle waste here as well. Commander, many of the items left here have significant research and reference value. If handled properly, I can guarantee that building large warships will be no problem. You haven't seen it, those things are truly astonishing. Dr. Liang Sheng, the only technical engineer in the team, said excitedly as he approached Qin Jun, gesturing animatedly. He was incredibly thrilled today, as he didn't expect to see so many advanced high-tech products with his own eyes. Although they were all broken items, he believed that with enough time for research, the R&D department would definitely be able to grasp the technical content and produce mature works. Many of the items here had theoretical designs in the base's research projects, but had never been practically developed. Some were only halfway completed, yet he found finished products here. In Dr. Liang's eyes, who was passionate about technology, this place was not a garbage island at all. It was a treasure trove, a paradise for scientific researchers. Qin Jun casually brushed off the enthusiastic Dr. Leong. When it came to the excited scientist, he had no choice but to patiently wait for the other party to stop talking on their own. Perhaps due to physical stamina or other reasons. After Dr. Leong finally finished expressing his views in a torrent of words, he came to a stop, allowing the surroundings of Qingjun to quiet down considerably. Commander, look what I found. A koala. A real Australian native koala. One team member ran over happily, holding a strange object. All attention was immediately drawn to him, and everyone gathered around, marveling at it. Even Dr. Liang Sheng, who was almost overwhelmed with joy, curiously followed over. This is a koala. It's Qingjun's first time seeing this unique creature of Earth. With its shiny fur, adorable appearance, and big eyes that carry a hint of fear and vulnerability, along with its chubby body, it truly makes one fall in love at first sight. No wonder those female comrades in the past always loved to place koala plush toys in front of their beds, treating them like treasures. However, Qingjun felt that there was something off about this koala. From the footage, the koala's fur should be darker and more muted, unlike this one that shines so brightly it could dazzle people's eyes. The area around here also doesn't seem to have any eucalyptus trees. How has it survived? Be careful. Don't touch it casually. The team member holding the koala stopped their teammate from trying to pet the koala and cautiously took out a very high-quality metal block from their pocket, placing it in front of the koala. A surprising scene unfolded as the koala bear actually took the metal block, holding it in its hands and bringing it to its mouth, munching away with a crunch. Crunch. Sound. Everyone watched in disbelief as the hard metal gradually disappeared into the koala bear's mouth. All the warriors who had once thought about reaching out to touch it wiped the cold sweat from their brows. Fortunately, they didn't extend their hands if it had bitten them. They would have been seriously injured. It turned out to be a mutated organism. Qingjun nodded in realization. That makes sense. Only mutated beings capable of devouring metal could survive in such harsh environments. Sometimes, the adaptability of plants and animals to extreme conditions is far stronger than that of delicate humans. Let it go. Although Qingjun quite liked this mutated koala, he had a heart in his heart and instructed his subordinates to release it. Their current situation was not good, and it was really not suitable to carry a pet around. Moreover, this was a mutated creature that only ate metal. If they weren't careful, and it ended up eating their weapons and equipment, it would be too late to regret. The warrior who caught the koala reluctantly put it down and waved to signal the other to leave. The chubby koala seemed quite spirited as it circled around the warrior's feet a few times before waddling away, its round body slowly disappearing into the metallic jungle. Everyone get moving. The temporary base will be set up here, split into two groups, one for fishing and the other for guarding. Qingjun began issuing orders. He needed to find something for his subordinates to focus on, to prevent them from getting distracted and bringing back something extraordinary. Establishing a temporary base is actually quite simple. After everyone cleared out the interior of the half-submerged warship, a basic temporary outpost was set up. With various metal debris outside, serving as camouflage, it is believed that the patrol ships from the Drudan side would find it very conspicuous when they arrive overhead. Commander, it's back again. Just as Qingjun was enjoying his dinner, the soldier who had previously captured the koala bear burst in recklessly. Come back? What do you mean by come back? Soldier, be clear. And why are you being so reckless? Don't forget, you are a soldier. You should know the punishment for violating regulations. 150 push-ups start immediately. Qingjun felt somewhat confused, but was also displeased with his subordinate's rash behavior. So he scolded him in a serious tone. Yes, sir. The reckless soldier immediately realized the inappropriateness of his actions. After saluting, he began to seriously carry out the punishment that the officer had given him. Qingjun was also intrigued by his subordinates and decided to go out and see what had happened. When he stepped out of the temporary base and saw the situation outside, he found it impossible to put his feelings into words. The missing koala not only returned on its own, but also brought 3 companions with it. Among them, 2 are very young and are currently hiding in the pouch of another koala, peeking out and curiously looking around. Am I in a zoo or an endangered species sanctuary? Am I that trustworthy? They actually came to me on their own. Qingjun felt incredibly frustrated as he stared eye to eye with the 4 koalas. He had reason to suspect that these koalas were definitely descendants of those raised in the zoo otherwise. There's no way they wouldn't be afraid of humans and would instead seek out protection. The addition of the koala bears did not have any negative impact on the troops instead. The presence of these few adorable and gentle little creatures brought some variety to the soldiers' leisure time. They became more energetic and smiled while working. After trying countless methods to chase away these little guys without success, Qin had no choice but to give up and indirectly acknowledge their place in the team. Troubles continued to arise one after another. The warrior who successfully tamed the koala must have had ancestors who were excellent animal keepers. He unexpectedly discovered several more animals in the chaotic metal jungle. Qin increasingly felt that he wasn't here to carry out a mission, but rather to open a zoo. Look, besides the koala family, there are now a few mutated kangaroos that eat metal, some strange little birds that don't know what to eat, and about 10 peculiar pangolin-like creatures. Qin simply appointed that amazing animal husbandry expert as the caretaker of the team, allowing him to focus on taking care of these animals. The search operation for the islands has been going very smoothly. For half a month, the troops have searched an area spanning dozens of miles. Aside from metal debris, no threatening presence has been detected. The Drutans have not built any bases or outposts here. Everything is calm apart from a few days when we needed to conceal ourselves to avoid the Drutan garbage transport ships. There have been no dangerous incidents. The adopted pets finally proved that they were not just lazy creatures that only ate and did nothing on a stormy night filled with thunder and lightning. It was the first sudden attack on the temporary base, and the invaders were not the Dredatans, but a swarm of ants and an enormous group of ants capable of consuming metal. Firearms had little effect on these mutated ants because they were simply too small and too numerous. Instead, it was the usually lazy and inactive pangolins that played a significant role. The fierce mutated ants had no chance of resistance against their natural enemies and were devoured in large numbers, ultimately having to abandon their assault on the temporary base and retreat. For this, Qin praised the caretakers highly in front of everyone, which made them beam with joy and serve the pets with even more dedication and effort. During his time on the island, Qin gained a preliminary understanding of the situation on the garbage island. He dispatched the members of Team 2 back to the submarine to report the results of their missions to the base. Meanwhile, he continued to explore further with others. The reason for sending the submarine back instead of using more advanced communication methods like telegraphs was mainly to avoid detection by the Drutans. After all, humans were in a vulnerable position here, and one careless mistake could lead to terrible and irreparable consequences. The news from the Australian side has come back. What does everyone think? Colonel Kai Zhenjie put down the report in his hand and looked at the others present. To avoid unnecessary trouble, due to his rank being higher than that of the commander-in-chief, all the members of the advisory group agreed after discussion to lower their ranks to that of colonel. This was also a way of showing their preliminary recognition of Qin's command. Recently, for some unknown reason, the Drutan forces have increased their patrols in the nearby areas, and even patrol teams have started appearing in the old battlefield. The security of the base is becoming increasingly uncertain, and it's time to find a way to address this. Kai Zhenhao began to explain the current situation. Yes, we can't always stay locked up in one place. The base is like a cage, and we never know when it might be broken into. I think we should consider our escape routes early. Even a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. The one who spoke next was Colonel Li Feng, who was in charge of logistics. His subordinates went out the most, so he was also the most familiar with the situation outside. Well, I'm considering relocating the entire base to Australia. What do you think? It's also the best place to hide and build warships. Kai Zhenjie asked confidently. Agreed. Agreed. Everyone raised their hands, and it passed unanimously. The specific relocation matters will be handled by Colonel Li Feng. After all, you are in charge of logistics and are most familiar with this aspect. The security work will be entrusted to Colonel Jiang Jianfeng and Colonel Gu Jing'an. We must ensure that everyone arrives at the destination safely. Dr. Kong, your task is also not light. You need to supervise and improve various equipment, materials necessary for submarine manufacturing, and robots. Dr. Lu Mei is responsible for medical support, aiming to minimize unnecessary losses and ensure that everyone arrives at the destination in good health. Kai Zhenjie assigned tasks one by one, and at this moment he showed no signs of having lost his memory. He completely resembled a general strategizing and commanding. The entire base, under the command of temporary commander Colonel Kai Zhenjie and the intelligent program arc, began to carry out the specific arrangements for the overall relocation. In fact, aside from a few pieces of equipment that needed to be transported, there wasn't much else that could be taken. Once the biological reactor was shut down It would be dismantled into several small reactors to serve as the energy supply system for various submarines. The robots will be disassembled and placed into a specialized transport submarine, along with other materials for transport. Due to loading capacity issues, most of the robots will have to remain at the base. All engineering technicians are working overtime to manufacture various equipment and armor needed for the submarine. Because of the excessive number of personnel at the base, even the main gate has been taken down and repurposed as the external deck of the submarine, all just to accommodate more people in a single transport. The issue of loading capacity necessitated multiple relocations, which also increased the threat of early exposure. Therefore, among the first batch of people to leave, apart from a few of the most elite soldiers, everyone else was scientists and technicians. As long as these individuals are present, even with significant losses, there remains a possibility of successfully leaving this place. As the coordinator of the relocation efforts, Colonel Li Feng will be among the last group to leave, alongside Colonel Gu Jinghan. Colonel Li Feng is essential due to the overwhelming complexity of the specific arrangements, making his presence indispensable. Colonel Gu Jinghan remains behind to ensure the safety of Colonel Li at all times. As the strongest warrior among the survivors, he is the only one capable of fulfilling this responsibility. The massive relocation effort could hardly guarantee perfect concealment. There were several instances when the patrols of the Drutans nearly caught sight of their tracks. If it weren't for Colonel Jiang Jianfeng and his subordinates having rich experience, they would have likely been exposed as soon as the operation began. Qin Jun did not expect that the advisory team left at the base would make such a decision. By the time he realized what was happening, the first batch of personnel had already arrived, and it was too late to reconsider. As a newly appointed commander, he still had a long way to go to earn everyone's trust and willingness to follow his lead. The arrival of the natural forces caused a flurry of activity among everyone. Equipment needed to be properly secured, suitable locations for the new large base had to be found and construction initiated, and a large number of personnel needed to be arranged immediately. The overwhelming amount of work kept him so busy that he hardly had time to ask the advisory team and ARC why decisions were made without notifying him or obtaining his consent. However, he had already come up with a preliminary response strategy to quickly establish his position as commander in everyone's minds and reduce the power of the advisory team. It wasn't that he was driven by greed or disrespectful to his seniors. It was simply that the current team needed a strong leader. Dispersed authority was not conducive to survival in a harsh environment. It is worth mentioning that as the fleet arrived at Garbage Island, the members of the advisory group did not take any action. Instead, they willingly handed over their authority. The intelligence system ARC also stated that it would fully comply with his arrangements and commands. This made Qin Jun, who was worried, secretly breathe a sigh of relief, glad that things were not heading in a negative direction. On the Earth side, people are busy with a massive relocation, and the Drutans are equally restless. All the troops stationed on the planet have been mobilized, and even the interstellar garrison in space has sent over a dozen small attack ships. All of this is due to one incident. The commander of the planetary defense forces was assassinated, and the hidden protest cultists within the troops have rebelled,